Hello YouTube, this is Blenderman Tutorials here, and for this tutorial series I'll be using Unity3D, Blender, and CrazyBump. CrazyBump and Blender are optional, but I chose them because they're free. In fact, all these programs are free and used by professionals. Now, Unity3D is the game engine that will be used for running the game. Blender will be used to create and texture our 3D models. And finally, there's CrazyBump, which will be used to generate normal textures that will be used for Unity. Now, like I mentioned before, Blender and CrazyBump aren't necessary. You can use a different modeling program or a different normal texture generator. It doesn't matter, but for these, I'm using them because they are free. And they work easily on all systems, or on most systems anyway. Now I'm going to get into downloading these programs. So if we go into our download or our internet browser, if you just go to Unity and type that in, you'll see Unity Game Engine right there, and if you click on download, the download section, you'll click this. It'll bring up this, and what you want to do is you want to download Unity 3.4. You don't want the pro version because that costs like $300 or $400. You want the free version because the free version works just as good. The next one we're going to go to is blender.org, and loading. Okay, so blender.org is where you'll download Blender, of course, and if you just scroll down all the way to here at download and you click on that, then it'll pop up this tab, and you just have to select whichever system you're using: Windows, Linux, Mac. I'm using Mac. I already have it downloaded though, so I don't need to do that again. And then for the next one, it's CrazyBump.com, and this is a beta testing thing. It was developed like 5 to 10 years ago, somewhere around there, but it still works great. There's not really a pro version, so for now there's gonna just download it for whichever version, or no, whichever system you're working with. This only works with Mac and Windows because it again is a it's in development. I don't think they're going to develop it anytime soon. So yeah, once you download these three, we'll get into Unity. Okay, I'm back, and now let's get into the Unity interface. So first off, we don't want this. It'll open up with some game. I think it's Angry Bots, sorry. Right, if I open that up. So start you up with Crazy Bots, and you can play around with this game. It's just something that the developers created. It's basically where you just kind of shoot these robots like this, like that. But for now, we don't want that. We want to create a new project, and that new project, if you just go to new project right there in file, and then it'll bring up this, and it says where do you want it to be. I set it to the desktop usually just because it is a lot easier to find. You can save it wherever. I'm just gonna save this as tutorial so it's easier to find it. And all of these are just assets that you can import. but don't import them yet. We'll import them later in the tutorial series. Now you just click on Create Project and save. Angry Bots doesn't matter. It's already saved for you, so it's creating, and then it opens up with this. I'm just gonna exit out of my Google Docs. Okay, so now that the new project was created, it gives us this window right here. And so I'm just gonna go over what this is. So first off, we have our hierarchy, and the hierarchy is basically what objects are in our scene. Right now, all we have in the scene is our main camera, and you can see the camera preview from there. Yeah, that's it for the hierarchy. Now, these tools up here are basically your editing tools. First off, you have the grab, which moves your scene. Then you have the arrows, or not the arrow, the movement, which actually moves your objects. Then you have the rotation, just rotates your objects. Then you have the scale, which scales up your objects, stuff like that. And I think, yeah, right click should move around, and then F actually focuses in on your scene. So if I move around like that, and then I zoom in, I can rotate around it like that. And yeah, it's just a really easy interface to use. This is why I love it. Now, the next thing we have is the assets folder. And the assets folder is where we're going to be storing all of our game objects, our scripts, our prefabs, and I'm going to get into that stuff later. Now, over here we have the inspector, and right now the inspector is on the main camera. So if we just click on the hierarchy right here, you see the inspector goes away, but when we do the main, click on the main camera again, it shows up. Now right here you can actually change the name, so I'm just gonna do tutorials, and you see it'll change it from here to there. And the tag, that's mainly for scripts. That's like if you want it to spawn bullet, you would have to have the bullet name, and you would have to have it tagged as a bullet so that the script could recognize it as a bullet and not just a random game object. The transform is just where it's located. So if I just put these all to 0, it would be directly in the middle of your game view. Now we have it's like the information about the camera, and this is like you see you can add a skybox, a background. All of this stuff is like how your camera perceives objects that are farther away from you, if it wants it to blur out, all that stuff. We'll get into that later. Same with the depth and the rendering, target texture, stuff like that. Then all this stuff you're not really gonna need to use for the tutorial series. Maybe just a little, but I'm not gonna get into that. Next we have game object. So if you go to game object, create other, you can see all these different things. Mainly we're gonna be using the directional lights and these game objects. But we are also going to get into the particle systems and the terrain. Maybe a little bit of, no, not the trees. And after that we have our assets, and the assets packages are just stuff that is created by the game developers at Unity, and what they do is they create these assets for you so that you can do less work, or you have the option of doing less work. And if you import a new asset, it'll actually take something from your desktop and import it into Unity. So that's it for the Unity interface. Now I'm going to get into the Blender interface. Oh my gosh, did I really say that? Blender interface. Sorry about that. Okay, YouTube, now I'm back. I'm in Blender right now. This might not be the latest one. It's Blender 2.69. It's what I downloaded. So it comes up with these settings, and these settings are basically they're not settings. They're just recent activity. What projects you've been doing recently. And so if we just click on this, we have our scene here, and we have the camera, the light, and the game object. So if you can press, actually I'm gonna turn, no, it's not on here. One sec, let me go into my user preferences. Oh my gosh, preferences. Okay, and then I go key, I think it is screencast keys. Yes. So I'm just gonna do that and save the user settings so that now you guys can see what I am doing. So if you just move your mouse, you can look around the scene, and then if you press Control and start to move your mouse in and out, it'll zoom in. Then right click will actually right click on objects. Why is it not doing it? Right click on an object. It'll pop up in our hierarchy, which is basically the same as Unity, except you can make objects unseeable in this and other things. Then we have our render settings and our game object settings. So right now we're on camera, and if we go to cube, we can rename it, we can do the location, we can set a material to it, we can give it a texture, we can add a shape key, I'll get into that later, a modifier, and last of all, we can get into particles and physics. So that's a lot of stuff. We probably won't be getting into this stuff for this tutorial, but maybe in separate tutorials. So if I go into my, we can go into edit mode by pressing tab, and we can do Alt Z and go into, textured view. And mostly we're going to be messing with textured view and edit view, and we're going to rename objects and stuff like that. Then over here we have our object tools. We can make the shading different, we can do a bunch of stuff. I won't get into that here. And then we have the timeline, which is like the animation of your scene. That's more for movies, or if you have animations for your character. We'll get into that later though. So that's it for the Blender tutorial. Now we're going to go into CrazyBump, which will not take very long at all. Okay, and that's it for Blender. Here's CrazyBump. Okay, now we're going to go into CrazyBump, and CrazyBump, for if you skipped over the first part of the tutorial, is the normal map part of the game design. And what you want to do is just open it. It'll open this up, and you want to go to open. Sorry about that, it's just water running. And now from this we can generate a bunch of different maps. We're gonna just open a photograph file, and from this we're just gonna just choose one. From, it's got to be repeatable. So seamless is what the technical term is. And for that, because then it'll look like a picture was just slapped on there. But if it's seamless, it will look like it just repeats itself over and over again, and it looks very clean cut. Now, if you usually you want to select the first bump map. The bump map is just how high the image will be raised. And from this, you can see it generated this. All the settings we're going to get into later. Basically, is just making the adjustments. And then if you just go to diffuse color, just click on that, then you can see how awesome it looks when the normal map is applied. So now that's done. I think that'll be it for this tutorial. If you like this tutorial, then make sure to click on the like button. And in the next tutorial, I will be showing you how to set up your scene in Unity and how to start up your game. If you want to see more, make sure to subscribe. And if you want to see, if you have questions about anything, comment. If you want to see anything in future tutorials, make sure to comment about it in the comment section. And I will see you next tutorial. Bye.